My work was hard to explain. They would try to write down what I needed to do. Sometimes I couldn't understand what it said. I finally pulled an interpreter in to work with me. And I worked there for 18 years. Some of the hearing people there, some of the other hearing workers understood I worked there for 18 years and then they just fired me. My position was taken away. So, excuse me, interpreter correction. While I was working there, I experienced a lot of frustration, and one day I just finally had enough, and I just let it all out, and they fired me because of it. They wouldn't give me a raise for the longest time. I wanted more money, and they wouldn't give it to me.
Okay, so not having an interpreter at work, having one helped, and it sounded like you were hanging on to a lot of, frustration, and then you got upset. What about school, though?
It's not really the same for me. I would just humble and accept the experiences, and I was just very quiet.
So Janice, can you think of any, what was frustrating for you in school specifically? If you had a story or an experience that happened to you.
All I can say is I was really mischievous growing up. I didn't really have any frustrations. I was just, you know what I mean? I was just mischievous. I didn't really have any care. I had no real problems, I guess. I'm mischievous to this day.
Maybe if I give you an example. My parents, looking back now on their school experiences, they have a lot of resentment. They identify now that the teachers would sign, but what that ended up looking like was the signing portion was not equivalent to how much they invested in what was coming out of their mouth.
Yeah, I experienced that.
So just looking back now, perhaps, anything that comes to mind.
I think my parents did not, they didn't know sign, and they didn't know sign language, and they were frustrated. They didn't like that I did sign language, and they were frustrated. I was frustrated with that.
Growing up, I always had a problem with this one teacher. I never really wanted to read or write. When I grew up, I finally realized how important it was to learn those skills. And now, looking back, it is a little too late. I should have focused more on my studies when I was growing up.
And if you don't feel comfortable sharing something, you don't have to.
Come on, share something. Leave me alone.
I'm thinking. I never really socialized with other deaf growing up. growing up, when I had an experience, a friend of mine was from Chicago, and I saw them signing, but I didn't know sign. I explained I grew up oral. And they began to teach me some signs, and I would practice them. But even still, we would have to write back and, at the time, we didn't want to write back and forth with each other. I really wanted to learn that sign language. But when I went home after that experience, my parents said, no signing. You have to speak. When I finally met my husband, he taught me sign language, and finally my parents accepted it, and they let me start to use it. A lot of my hearing friends kind of started to fade out of my life, and I started to really enter the deaf world and experience deaf culture.
Okay, so for me during school at St. John's, there was a lot of experiences that I had, with oral education. And I had the headphones, and I would just tell all the sisters and the teachers there that I couldn't hear. And then I would go home and try to teach myself, and my mother would help me read all my homework for school. I remember when I started 6th grade, the sisters would always give me like funny stories and good stories that they had. But when I was in 6th grade, they put me into the 7th and 8th grade rooms, even though I was at 6th grade, I should have been in the 6th grade level. So from 6th to 8th grade, I had the same sister, and and I was really sick of it because it was just the same thing that happened every single day. So I was stuck with it. I had no choice if I wanted to change or not. And then I finally asked my mother, why am I in the same classroom? And she would tell me that I'm really smart, and I didn't think it was fair. I wanted to be with different sisters. I didn't want to have the same sister as a teacher every single day. But anyway, so then I went to St. Mary's, and that experience, that experience was a challenge, definitely. It was very different than the school that I went to in Milwaukee. Very different. It was in New York, as I said before, so it was a little awkward, but it was definitely overall a challenge learning. And my academics, I was used to just passing all my classes. And I tried to, get in the group of friends that were deaf, and we would steal the tests. And then after they found out, they would not allow me to be involved in that group. So I said, fine. And then until my 3rd year in my world history class, the teacher passed out the test, and it had black ink on the test. And then when the sisters would hand out the test, I would get mine back, and it had black ink, the correct answers on the test. And the sister saw that and gave me an F. And just ripped up the paper as she gave it back to me. And And then another sister saw what had happened and sent me to the principal's office. And the principal had asked me what happened. And I was trying to, weasel my way out of it. And the principal, watched me and took me to the classroom and made sure that I took the test. The sister and the principal stuck me in the corner and made sure that I did not cheat. And everybody was finished with the test, and I was still there. And I didn't cheat, and I still passed the test.